You know, they say the first 2 minutes make the impression of the speaker for the rest of the day. So I hope I'm doing well with you here. Awesome. All right, yeah, it's great. It's really great to be here. I haven't actually been back in India for maybe like 15 years. Back then, my mother lived in Bangladesh. She's Bangladeshi, and I would come here periodically and always do some workshops here, talks here, and then go visit her in Dhaka. And it's been 15 years, so it's awesome to be back here with you. Let me talk to you what we're going to talk about, and maybe I'll just sort of orient you to a few key concepts, and then we're going to dive in. You're going to pull out your workbook, and you're going to write. My objective here is that I'm going to get a phone call or a message from you 3 years from now, and you're going to say, there was an idea that I or my team came up with in that session that we then implemented, and now we are 10 times the size that we were. I get those all the time. I'm not going to give you any ideas. I'm just going to ask you a series of questions and walk you through a thinking process. And it almost always leads to these disruptive big ideas. It has nothing to do with something that I know. It is not a complicated process. I've just been developing and refining this process over 6 books, over 25 years, and just trying to simplify and simplify and simplify it, and it works. 95% of people who experience this workshop, they walk out and they say, I came up with an idea that I didn't have when I walked in here that could be transformative to my business. Companies that go through this process, on average, they accelerate their growth rate by 50% for the next 3 years. And it's not rocket science. It's just that your competitors are lazy, and they don't want to stop and think about all the options that they have, and they don't want to look at all the different places in their business they could look for disruptive ideas. And what we're going to do is we're going to compress the time that it takes for you to look under all the rocks of possibilities, and it will just naturally lead to an idea that your competitors don't have. Sound good? Awesome. We're talking today about outthinking the competition. We're not going to talk about out-executing the competition or out-muscling the competition. This is Ray Kroc. He's the founder of McDonald's. And he said that my attitude is that the competition can try to copy my style, but they can't read my mind. So I'll leave them 1.5 miles behind. So what we want to think about is the success of our organizations being the result of ideas that flow out of us, out of our team, out into the market. And we're going to overwhelm our competition with ideas. And we're going to go through a framework. We're not going to just talk about product ideas. We're going to talk about branding ideas and people ideas and process ideas and physical experiences and ease of recruiting and channels, lots of ideas. And we're going to overwhelm our competition. Now, some ideas are better than other ideas. Ideas that your competition understand quickly and adopt rapidly are less valuable than ideas that your competitors will take 1, 5, 10 years to copy. Does that make sense? Like if you introduce an idea and it increases your profit margin, and if that profit margin increase lasts for 10 years, the net present value of that is much higher than if it only lasts for a year, right? So we're looking for a certain type of idea. And all the innovators that if you look at how they talk about how they think, they look for this one particular type of idea. They all describe it in different ways. My favorite phrasing of the way of what we're looking for is that of Gandhi, who said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. Now I'm proposing that this is not a random list. This is an intentional strategic sequence. You want to do something that your competitors will ignore and laugh at. Which seems kind of strange, right? Because you want to be at the next conference and celebrated for your innovativeness. You want your company to be recognized. And what I'm saying is no, what we want to do is we want to make others not understand us, to ridicule us. Someone call out for me to explain, why do you want others to ignore and laugh at us? Just raise your hand. Why? What's the benefit of others ignoring and laughing at us instead of admiring us? How about you? Do you mind? Do you have an answer? Yes, I'm sure. They won't follow us. Exactly. They won't follow us. And so they'll ignore and laugh at us. They won't follow us. We're running off into this future. We're creating this future. And by the time they wake up and say, wait a second, what's your name? Nandali. But what Nandali is doing right now is actually going to work. It's too late. You've already gone. Right? This is what we're looking for. Now, there's lots of things that we have called this over the years. How many people have heard the term blue ocean? Have you heard of blue ocean or blue ocean strategy? Great book, great concept. One way to create this kind of impact is not to fight in the red ocean. The red ocean is the market where everyone is competing. And instead you go to the blue ocean where there's no competition. People aren't even thinking about that market segment. That's a way to get them to ignore and laugh at us. How many people have heard the term disruptive innovation? Disruptive innovation is a way to achieve this. In disruptive innovation theory, what we do is we target a customer segment that our competitors don't view as very valuable. We offer them a product or service that they view as inferior. So they let us have that. That becomes our beachhead. And having that beachhead, we then learn and we produce better products and service that attract more valuable customers. Same impact, right? They've ignored and laughed at us. How many people have read The Art of War or have heard of Sun Tzu? Sun Tzu wrote maybe the original strategic text called The Art of War. He has a word that was translated into English as taking whole. Taking whole says that you attack your enemy and they just open the gates to you. There's no fighting, there's no loss, there's no bloodshed. Do you see that for 2,500 years, strategists have been looking for this type of idea. We've just changed what we call it. This is the same strategic concept. We've just changed what we call it over the years. And my invitation to you is today, just for the next 3.5 hours or 4 hours, let's call it the fourth option. Let me go right back here. The fourth option. This is just a metaphor. It says there's a point at which others have stopped thinking. That's represented by the metaphor 3. 3 is like a magic number. In many religions, 3 is symbolic. The strongest shape is a triangle. When I was at McKinsey, they trained me to break everything down into sets of 3s. When great orators say 3s and 3 sets of 3s and 3 sets of 3s, we get comfortable. And we feel like, okay, we have our options. Let's now start talking about choosing from these options. And what you want to do is recognize where others are doing that, where they've stopped thinking. They've grown lazy. They've started repeating themselves. And what great innovators do is they look for those moments and those places and they introduce a fourth option. That make sense? We're going to do a little quick round of brainstorming here just to warm us up as we search today for fourth options. We're going to be talking about your business and technology and the future, but let's just go back in time for a moment. So in 240 BC, there was a massive revolution underway in China, and one general was given a critical challenge. He was given 50,000 men, and they had to march across the kingdom, cross a river, get to the other side, and quell the rebellion. However, when they got to their side of the river, they looked across the river and they saw 100,000 rebels had appeared on the other side to stop them. Yeah? So they said, what are our options? Same thing that you and your team, talk about when you face a river. I mean, your river might be, how do we win this client? How do we get this product out in time? How do we enter this channel? Different rivers. But you have a river and you say, what are our options? And one option is, they said, what if we go home and we explain to the emperor we couldn't cross the river because there were people waiting for us on the other side? I know many of you are HR people. What were the HR policies in 240 BC China if you failed the emperor? You get your head cut off, right? So let's hope that that's a suboptimal option. Let's go to the next option. What if we wait until the rebels leave? But as he thought that through, it occurred to him that they're not going to leave because they've achieved their mission just by being there. So we'll nevertheless have failed the emperor, nevertheless have our heads cut off. When I was at McKinsey, they trained me to break everything down into mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive options. MISI thinking. Mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. If misapplied, could lead you to say, well, there's reverse, there's neutral, there's forward. If I can't go reverse and I can't wait, well, we got to go forward. We're going to have to get in the river and wade across and attack the enemy that's waiting for us on the other side. Now, you guys are all brave people. I want you to raise your hand if you are excited about jumping into this river for this general. No one raised their hand. I want to hear a few people call out for me. What are some reasons that you thought, well, this might be our best option, right? We may not have a better option. We might have to do it. But you at least hesitated. You thought, maybe there's another option. What are some reasons that you think this might not be a good option? Yes? Yes, we're 50,000, they're 100,000. They outnumber us 2-1. Huge disadvantage. What else? Yes? You're making the first move. They are controlling the pace. They know what's going to happen. They're defining the game, right? Another way of saying this is, well, it's a permutation of that, is that you are on the offensive, they're on the defensive. Offensive positions almost always take more energy than defensive positions. Think about it in business. It costs more to acquire a new customer than it does to retain a customer, right? The attack takes more energy than the defense. Excellent point. What else? Yes, we're exposed to them. They're on their territory. We're wading through the water. They see us coming. There's no coverage, so the terrain creates a great disadvantage. Perfect. So we have several reasons. We'll probably come up with some more. But that's enough for us to stop before we jump in the river and ask, what is the what? The fourth option. What is the fourth option? So that's my question for you. I'm going to give you a minute on your team, at your table, to brainstorm as many fourth options that this general might consider, and we'll ask a few of you guys to share what fourth options you see. I'll give you 1 minute. How do we cross the river? How do we quell the rebellion? Pass the microphones around, right? All right, give you 30 more seconds. Come up with 5 more fourth options. Pass me my phone. Can you pass me my phone? Yeah. Thank you. All right, that's all the time we're going to give you. I'd like to have a few tables, at least 3, could be more. Share with me a fourth option. And these fourth options, they don't have to be well thought out. You don't have to know that they're going to work. We just want to share ideas that open up possibilities, which we usually don't get to do at work, right? Usually when we introduce an idea, people ask, well, you know, how much is it going to cost? What's the adoption rate going to be? Can we execute it? Is it legal? But we usually don't have the space. This is a safe space. You can offer ideas that aren't yet fully vetted. You're saying, could we consider, you're not proposing, you're saying, could we consider doing this? So don't feel restrained. You guys have one. We're going to bring you a microphone. Can we have a microphone here? Okay, and then can we have a microphone at this gentleman right there? Okay, thank you. And then we'll go to there. Okay. Yes.
Probably induce them to cross over.
Great. Any thoughts on how we do that? I haven't given you
Maybe, have some strategy wherein they are getting excited by what you are doing over that side.
Yes.
And just induce them to cross over in small numbers. So they are in smaller numbers when they cross over and you are in bigger number when you face them.
Great. I just want to point out something interesting about that idea. What we've done here is we've really, by proposing an idea, we've opened up a discussion of a whole family of other ideas. What are the 50 different ways that we could lure them over, right? So it's really important to have space to allow people to share ideas that open up an invitation to strategize further. Yes. And we have someone back there.
Yeah, the fourth option was actually a combination of the first three ideas, kind of. Where the entire army doesn't go back home, but they send messengers back to the emperor, and maybe the river is not the only place where they could cross over, and the emperor sends another set of army from the other side to attack, and they attack from both sides.
So they look like we look like we're retreating, and they probably are feeling like, oh,
or
great,
they're just
they're
waiting, and they've sent messengers to get the army
I
to
see,
come
I see,
from
I see,
the
yes.
other side. Yeah.
Great. I love it. Yeah, I love it. Who else? Let's bring a microphone to this woman over here, please. Why don't you go first, and then we'll go to you.
See, this is very common in Kabaddi in our country. When the person who enters the other's field, attracts the people to that the gentleman is entering through this route, and then he immediately changes the route and enters into the deep well of the other side and touches and comes back. This is very common. See, the same strategy can be adopted in this when a small bunch of people can follow one route, the concentration of the other side will be on that side and immediately give them a dodge and enter through the other route. That is just advisable so that the other field side gets some impression that they are following this route, but in fact there is an alternate strategy when their team can enter through the another route.
Great. Yeah, you're starting to see how, which great what you're doing is you're taking we're going to call it a strategic narrative from one domain, you're abstracting it, and then you're applying it to another domain. You're taking a pattern from business and then applying it to war. So that's exactly the core of the methodology. Please.
So it's somewhat similar to what he said. You feel that, okay, you have concentrated people here, perceiving that, okay, this is where it is, but you dodge them by, sending a few from two different directions where they can explore and move on.
Excellent. That's great. So we split off, engage them, split off, and then we maybe cross on two different areas. Maybe we then surround them.
Yeah, but the perception is, they are still here.
Yeah, they're
so
still
basically
here. Right,
you're just dodging. So
you lock them in. That's great. I love it. And you can see we start seeing a combination. As you strategize, you're going to come up with 30 or 40 different strategies. And the end strategy is often a combination of those. It's like a dot painting. You put a bunch of dots down, and then the picture emerges out of it. Great. Thank you. Over there, and then I think that will probably be the last, or then one more person, and then we're going to go. Please.
So you've given three options,
Yep.
and I will not be governed by your three options, but I'll be informed by them. And I take the word go home, which means home is not too far away.
Okay.
So I'll make sure that I keep getting the supplies of food. The other guys will get starved eventually. Because they have probably come from far, and that's what it is.
Great. So we can wait them out. We can turn time to our advantage by having access to resources and food. Great.
Thank you.
Love it. Excellent. All right, last one. Thank you.
I am sharing one of the practical example of that which I came across in last 2 years. Basically, I am from east of India. I am from West Bengal. And 2 years back, I was been transferred to south. I am working at Hosur. This is in south of India. There was a huge language barrier. Talking to the subordinates, colleagues, and the persons who are working in the plants also. There was a language barrier is there. The same situation was there. I may need to go home or wait and learn their language to interact with them. So in my case, that was a big issue was there. So I started to educate them in Hindi so that not only me, all other person in the plant can understand and can interact with each other.
Yep.
So probably I will not tell this has been completely happened in the organization, but people are started talking in Hindi rather than in local language, and this has become a culture of the my plant, where people started talking in Hindi in most of the time rather than local language.
Great. So what we could do then maybe is we start dialoguing with them,
Yes.
and we acculturate them to our side, and then they become supportive of us, and they become part of ours instead of the rebels. That's great. I love it. I love it. Excellent. So I'm going to leave it there. There are more ideas. You can take tunnels. You can shoot arrows. You can build boats. You can build bridges. You can partner with them. You could find other forces. You could go north. You could go south. You could do all kinds of things. But my point here is that maybe 5 minutes ago, we were wondering how we were about to jump in the river. And now, after 5 minutes of just a little open brainstorming, searching for the fourth option, now we have all these other options. It might be that this is still the best option, right? But we realize we have more options. And what I propose to you is that in business, we usually just jump into the river. Because I really set us up for success here, right? Our situation was, I die, we all die. We don't face those choices at work. Our choices are, well, this might work, that might work. I heard that this region, they did this thing with crossing the river. It worked for them. I found a book on how to cross the river. And so we want to go through the water. Over and over again. It feels safer. But it doesn't mean that all these other options are not available to us if we just stop. Just stop and say, what is the fourth option? That's the invitation for you to do today. I know you've got a bunch of good ideas and strategies. That's great. We're going to write them all down, and then we're going to stop before you execute them and say, what is the next fourth option? Let me tell you what the general did. He did something that you suggested. He ordered his men to take sandbags. They built a dam. When the water receded, he orders men to cross the empty bank. He engages the enemy. Now he's still outnumbered. They're still on their terrain, right? But so he doesn't want to complete the battle there. He orders men to turn around and run back to his side of the river. And what do the rebels do? They follow them. He waits for half the rebels to get to his side of the river. Half of them are still working their way across the bank. And what does he do next? He removes the sandbags. He washes away half the rebels. He turns around to fight. This is a true story. So now let's look at our strategic situation. We're no longer outnumbered 2-1. We're evenly matched 2-1. We're no longer on the offensive. We're on the defensive. The water no longer creates a disadvantage to us. It creates a disadvantage to them because it restricts their freedom of movement. We've turned a situation that we couldn't win into one that we can't lose, and we did it just by stopping and asking, what is the fourth option? Yeah? That's the invitation today. This search for the fourth option is a source of all competitive advantages in all domains. Before 1968, there were 3 ways to go over high bar. They were all forward techniques: a scissor, a straddle, a roll. Then in 1968, in the Olympics, a gentleman decided to turn his back on the tradition. He goes over the high bar backwards. It takes the competition 8 years to copy him. 8 years later, 90% of high jumpers are doing this technique. Anyone know what this technique is called? Yes? The Fosbury flop. The Fosbury flop. The Fosbury flop becomes the dominant strategy for going over the high bars. But here are 2 things I want to point out from this picture. First of all, there's no new technology that suddenly appears in 1968 that enables us to go over high bars backwards. The technology, if you will, is just pads put on the other side of high bars. And we were laying those pads down already 15 years before. So, technically it's feasible. Why didn't someone do this 4 years before, 8 years before, 12 years before? What I'm going to propose is the reason that nobody did this is because the concept of Fosbury flop as language was not introduced yet. We want to look not at the technologies, but the language around the technologies to tell us how we can seize the possibilities that technology makes available to us. It's not until you have the term Fosbury flop that you can call up a coach and say, hey, can you teach me that technique where you go over backwards? No, can you teach me the Fosbury flop? You can't get a book on the Fosbury flop. There's no conference on the Fosbury flop, right? So what we're going to be talking about is your strategy are actions that take as a result of, your outputs are the result of the actions you take from your strategy. Your strategy is language that's put into words. How you create the strategy is a result of the language that you use when you're strategizing. And so I'm going to introduce you some emerging language around strategy that will have you naturally think differently and naturally see and choose options that your current language doesn't allow you to see. This is what, if you want to geek out a little bit, the reason we call this outthinking is because I believe that language are problem-solving tools. And when you can't find a solution, you can't grow as fast as you want to grow or recruit as fast as you want to recruit, it's because the tools that you're using are missing another tool. And so what we're going to do is we're going to borrow a tool, a language tool from a different vocabulary, and apply it here. Fosbury flop. Second thing is, this is going to reveal an option. And how are you going to know it's a fourth option? Is if competitors will ignore and laugh at you. If they will look at your idea and they'll say, are you crazy? Every gold medal winner has gone over forward. Every trainer of every Olympic athlete has trained them to go over forward. Everyone knows you go over forward. That's the only sign that it's potentially a fourth option. Because if your team gets it, if your boss gets it, if your partners get it, if your employees get it, you know what? Your competition's going to get it really quickly too. And your advantage is going to be short-lived. It's not a fourth option. And that is the fundamental dilemma of strategic innovation. It is about language and beliefs. So how do we overcome that dilemma? That's what we're going to look on today. We're going to work on overcoming the dilemma, because right now is the best time to be looking for fourth options. I'm going to stay with sports for one more example. Let's look at the average height of the most valuable basketball players in the NBA. So 1960, I looked at who were the 5 most valuable basketball players for each year, what were their heights, and I averaged it out, and it's about 80 inches tall. If we look for the next 2.5 decades, what we see is a very clear trend. What's that trend? The best players are getting what? They're getting taller. Now, something weird happens in the next 5 years, leading up to 1985. Suddenly, the best players are shorter. They're almost as short as they were 2.5 decades ago. Now, maybe this is just an anomaly. Maybe there are like 1 or 2 really good short players. So let's play this forward. Next 5 years, oh my gosh, wait, they're still short. Maybe this is a new norm. Maybe now the best players are actually shorter. You know what? It's not even a new norm. It is a new trend. The best players are getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. Anyone know what happens around 1980? The shoes, the Nike shoes? No, it's not. The rules change around, yes? Nope. Close, good idea, but no, yeah?
I think when you shoot from far, you get 3 points.
Yes.
So height is not important. It's the ability to shoot through the basket, which is what.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The rules change, and when you shoot from far, you start getting 3 points instead of 2 points. And some teams adapt to the new game, others do not. Some players adapt to the new game, others do not. When the rules change, it opens up the possibility to play the game differently. And right now, you're not facing 1 3-point shot rule change. You are facing many, at least 12. Again, our Outthinker Networks is a peer network of heads of strategy and heads of innovation. And one thing that we do is we get together and talk about what are the trends that are relevant in banking and technology and construction and retail and distribution and importing. And these are the top trends on their radar right now. We poll them periodically. They're worried, of course, about AI. How many people are thinking about AI? Everybody, right? They're worried about the digitization of value. It means that more and more of the physical stuff that we sell, the value of it is getting delivered digitally. They're worried about regulatory complexity, changes, uncertainty in regulation. They're worried about the democratization of data. There's a proliferation of data, but data maybe is not the new oil. Data is the new water, and it's available and shareable thanks to advances in APIs very easily. Our businesses are being powered increasingly with solar and alternative energy, which is distributed energy. Robotics in manufacturing is allowing to customize at scale and switch over things more rapidly, reduce costs, reduce dependence on humans. A drive towards sustainability, a growing concern of global warming, and not just among customers, but around regulators. Externalities are starting to become internalities, and you're having to pay for construction in order to protect your places against water floods and paying higher insurance costs. Future of work, which we talked a lot about yesterday, and if you're here, you're thinking a lot about this. What is the future of the work and relationship with employees? IoT and connected devices are getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So now our spaces are becoming smart spaces. We can track temperatures, what time people go in. We can read faces. We can check humidity, right? So we're starting to turn our spaces into smart spaces, which then produces more data. Geopolitical uncertainty, maybe deglobalization. Maybe we enter a world where it's not global or global, but we're going to have the China bloc, we're going to have the India bloc, we're going to have the Western bloc, something like that, and we're going to start seeing trade be between those. You're already seeing that with the internet. We're seeing supply chain disruptions in part due to that. You're probably worried about next generation customers and next generation workers, what they care about. We talked yesterday about how they increasingly care about purpose, for example, and so we need to adapt to that. You've got blockchain not as a cryptocurrency, but as a way of managing data in a decentralized, safe manner. They're worried about 3D printing or thinking about 3D printing, which I don't think people fully appreciate, but that is going to transform manufacturing. And they're worried about spatial computing and the metaverse, which people talked a lot about years ago. It seems that it's gone away a little beyond the hype cycle, but it's there and it's coming back, and it's going to shape things, right? So what we have is not one three-point shot. We have multiple three-point shots. So I really believe that we are on the edge of this moment. It's only happened 3 other times in recorded history in which you have a historical choice to make. How are you going to play the game? Are you going to keep playing the old game, or are you going to create the new game? Are you going to keep going over the high bar forward, or are you going to explore the 4th options that allow you to go to the hard bar backward? Are you going to be a thinker or an outthinker? Yeah? Awesome. So, assuming that you want to be an outthinker, how do we do that? There are 5 steps to this. And this is the framework. You have your workbook follows this. You have also a cheat sheet with graphics of this. You get together with your team. You're thinking about what should our strategic priorities be next year or next quarter. How are we going to cross this river? And instead of just what you usually do, what I'm going to invite you to do is to first stop and imagine. To step out into the future and imagine a very different future. Then before you generate ideas, I'm going to ask you to dissect the problem, specifically dissect your business model. Dissecting is that we tend to look at the same areas in our business model repeatedly for a solution. If you're strategizing with marketing people, they're going to talk about marketing. If you strategize with technology people, they're going to talk about technology. With HR people, they're going to talk about people. Right? You give a child a hammer, everything looks like a nail. We all fall victim to this. This is an opportunity for us to stop and strategically choose which parts of the business model, which parts of the problem to look at. Having done that, we're now going to expand, practicing frame shifting, generating lots and lots of ideas. You should, at the end of this, have at least 20 ideas. If you have 40 ideas, that's better. My record is in a workshop like this, someone generated 258 ideas. So you're going to generate lots and lots and lots of ideas. Having generated those ideas, you now are going to analyze them and sort them and choose them. We're going to do it in 3 steps to avoid this risk of, after you generate the ideas, just doing the obvious thing. And then what we're not going to cover here, but your workbook does cover a little bit, selling the idea. How do you build alignment and buy-in and support for the strategy? IDEAS, it spells ideas. I believe all models are wrong, and some are useful. I've forced it to spell IDEAS just to make it easy for you to remember. Imagine and dissect you can think of as a widening and narrowing discussion on what the question is. So this is question. And this is a widening and narrowing discussion on what the answer is. Strategy is an answer to a question. So this is the question, and this is the answer. You can do this in 3 days, you can do it in 1 day, you can do it in 45 minutes, you can do it in 10 minutes, depending on how you want to use it. IDEAS. Sound good? So now we're going to shift gears, and we're going to start working together on this. Now, I'm going to make sure that you understand all the steps. We may not go through all the steps, but I will go through some of the steps, and you will know how to do the other steps. It's important to me that you actually know how to do this. Okay, let's start. Step number 1. We are at, what page am I on in the workbook? Do you mind just telling me? Probably page 2? Yep, page 2. Page 2 and 3 of the workbook. Under Imagine, what we are going to avoid is the fact that our strategic approaches tend to encourage us to play chess like a bad chess player. I have 3 children. My youngest son, 14 years old, he beats me in chess all the time. And the reason is that the way I play chess is I take my pawns and I move them forward, and I hope that I'm going to get him into checkmate. What he does is exactly the opposite. He envisions checkmate, and then he works backward from there, and he figures out what the near-term position should be. Right? We all know we should be doing this future thinking, you know. That's why we have our visions and our BHAGs and our painted futures and our purpose statements and all that, right? But the thing is that the way that we're encouraged to develop our strategies and our goals is encourages us to play like a bad chess player, right? We do a SWOT analysis, we look at past performance, and then we project our goals based off of past performance. We've been growing at 20% a year. Could we grow at 25% a year? We have a net promoter score or an ENPS score of 30. Could we have 35? Now, I'm going to argue that this type of this working from the back to define your future goals will necessarily encourage your team to come up with tactical ideas to do what's been done before. Does anyone see why that is? And want to share that with us? Setting your goals based off of past performance necessarily leads our team to want to do what we've done before. It robs them of the, yeah, please, tell us why.
Because you're focusing more on improving efficiencies, reducing complexities. You're not thinking about out of the box ideas.
Yes.
You're thinking of something new. You want to go down the beaten road.
Yes. We go down the beaten road, yes. And maybe we veer off a little bit, but it's okay to come up with tactical ideas, yes.
Working on somebody else's limitation.
Repeat that. We're going to give you a microphone, please.
You're working on somebody else's limitation.
Yes. Because our limitations are ingrained in what we know that we've done before. So you want to build a computer that's going to fall off a table, right? What you want to do is ask your engineers to build one that comes off a roof. They have to think differently, right? So when you set your goals based off of that, if we could achieve our goals by doing what we've done before, but a little bit faster, a little bit better, we will naturally grasp on to doing what we've done before. We don't have to think differently. Yes?
It is about incremental growth.
Yes.
And not about, it's not disruptive. It is incremental.
Yes. Great. It's incremental, not disruptive. What we're going to break through by setting a goal that is impossible. Impossible as defined by we don't know how to do it. But we so rarely get a chance to talk about impossible goals, right? So the process looks linear, but it's actually iterative. We're going to set a goal that is really big. We're going to come up with 50 different ways to solve it. Then we're going to add up the ways that we chose, and we're going to see if we can hit our goal. What you find is often, when you look at what your possible strategies are, actually even your impossible goal was too small. You can actually come up with an even bigger goal. It's really cool. Excellent. You guys want to say something? Okay, please go ahead.
So I think, as you said, that we keep on thinking what we currently are in the business. So for example, let's say if it's an airline business, they will only think in terms of other airlines or maybe faster way of transportation, but they would probably never think not so direct competitors like LinkedIn and Zoom or Teams, which could actually put them out of business because then people don't have to really travel. So I mean, thinking beyond what's the function that you are trying to serve and how else it can be really served is how I think team needs to think more and more.
Yeah, that's a whole nother dimension. We're defining our goals based off of the metrics that our industry uses, not understanding what the true purpose of our business is. Yeah, we're going to get into that. You're going to see that. That's a great point. Okay, so we're going to go through these steps. Instead of doing this, instead of saying, here we are today, what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, what worked, what hasn't worked, and given that, what is a reasonable but stretched set of strategic goals, which, as you say, encourages incremental thinking. I wouldn't say it doesn't encourage, it doesn't require different thinking. We can achieve this by doing what we've done before. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to practice mental time travel. Oh, sorry, I'm going the wrong way. We're going to practice mental time travel, which is it's a capability that humans have. Very few animals show any ability of practicing mental time travel. All of society depends on mental time travel. Without mental time travel, without imagining, could it rain tomorrow, there's no reason to build a shelter. Without imagining mental time travel and saying, oh, winter's coming, there's no reason to save food. All of society depends on this unique human ability of mental time travel. So we're going to practice mental time travel, and we're going to zoom out. I want you to zoom out 10 years from now, and I want you to think about what is the mess? What is the undesirable but realistic future that will occur if you continue on your current path? So in the first box, I want you to write a few keywords. What is the undesirable, realistic future that will occur if we continue on our current path? There are many possible futures. I'm sure you've got a great rosy future. I want you to pick the future that's undesirable, but that is possible. If you're with a group, you can discuss it and just write down maybe 5 keywords. This is just for yourself. If you're not going to have to share this, if you see someone looking over your shoulder, you can just cover it up and protect this. It's just you. If you do this with your teams, you want to let them just pour out everything. They're not, often people are not willing to think productively or unless they're heard. They got some frustration. They got some complaint. They just got to capture it all down. A way of building urgency. Burning platform for change. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop there. Yes, please. Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's perfect there. Thank you. All right, I'm going to stop you there. Typically, you want to spend about 15 or 20 minutes on this. Again, I'm going to compress this a bit. You're still going to get the full experience, but this way you can cover everything in the time we have, and you'll be able to replicate it. So that was the mess. And what you're aiming for is to build this sense of urgency and get people to say, yeah, you know what? Where we're headed is not necessarily where we want to be headed. It's worth coming up with a different strategy. Next, I would like you to think about, you're still zoomed out 10 years from now, holding your team out 10 years from now, and I want you to ask, what are the long-term trends that are going to shape the environment that we are in? Consider technological trends, macroeconomic trends, socio-demographic trends, regulatory trends. Write down the top 3 trends that are going to most significantly shape the future in which we are competing in 10 years. These are not internal trends. These are external trends. They're the same trends that your competition is thinking about. These are agnostic to you. Okay, I'll give you just 30 more seconds on this. If you do this with your team, a nice way to do it is have people list a bunch of trends, and you can just create one list, and then you can give them stickers or markers, and they go up and they get to pick 3 trends, and then you can see which are the trends that are most on top of people's minds. Is someone willing to willing to share with us what the trends are, the 3 trends are that you or you and your team decided on?
One is technology. I believe.
Oh, yes,
that
please.
One is technology.
Technology. And is there something specific in technology, like a certain technology?
Like the current automations and things are going to
Yes.
help us in the next course of action what
Great.
we should do.
Yeah, because there would be multiple technologies, but it's all like automation is the
Yeah.
topic. Great. Uh-huh.
Second one is the next generation's requirements and their social acceptance.
Next generation requirements for full acceptance.
Social acceptance.
Social acceptance. Okay. Yep.
And the third one is the resources and the waste management.
Ah. What do you mean resources?
Resources like whatever we have on our platter that is available and it is diminishing day by day.
Yep.
So we have to think that what are the things which are like oil.
Great.
Earlier, I think 40, 50 years back, it was ample, but now it is getting reduced. So you have to think over that what is going to be resources available which you can utilize for your
Yes. What are the
living.
future limited
Yeah, future
resources
of-
which
yeah.
are going to be different, right?
Yes.
So you got 3 things. You've got automation, changes in what constitutes social acceptance, and a shift in what inputs are strategic. Excellent. Perfect. That's a great example. Awesome.
Hi. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
So I think but in the technology, I have put better use of data to identify the future requirement.
Yep.
Or as you said, the data is the new
Oil,
resource.
water. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So the technology the trend will be more on that, using those datas
Yep.
for future requirement.
Yep. Perfect. Great. What other trends? That's one trend.
Okay.
What are the other 2
So
trends?
a couple of them are covered. Regulations, more and more human resource compliances.
Yeah.
That will be a new norms or new trend.
Uh-huh.
And again, socio-economic and demographic, I can see that product seller, the seller which is near to the customer,
Yep.
will be more, it will be better for them to pitch to the customer.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Excellent. Okay. All right. One more. Yeah. And then we'll go on to the next step.
So we are into personal care ingredient manufacturing, and as far as regulations go, environmental regulations with respect to reduce, recycle, organic, and fair trade. is very trend driven now. In technology, producing ingredients which have the least impact on the environment through least effluent generation, least waste generation
Yeah.
is going to be a technological challenge
Yeah.
also, and trending also. Socio-demographic is how businesses during the supply chain are impacting the communities, because there are natural as well as synthetic ingredients which are used. So natural, what impact does it have on the society at large, and what is the impact factor of your business, like an ESG goal sort of
yes.
assessment. And macroeconomic is something which I'm not very clear about. Maybe if you
In
could
10 years out, it's sort of hard to know what macroeconomic trends will be often, because they fluctuate, you know. But yeah, okay.
All right.
Good, awesome. And you can see how those three kind of have a similar flavor. One thing that is really good to do at this stage, which we won't have time to do now, is try to take these three things and put them together as one thing, as one picture. And how many people have heard the term lean or agile or scrum? How many people have heard of that? How many people have heard of John Boyd or OODA loop? Anyone heard of that? So lean, scrum, agile comes from a framework developed by a fighter pilot. His name is John Boyd. He was known as the 40-second Boyd. Within 40 seconds, if he got in the air with you, he'd have you locked in his sights. The best trainer of fighter pilots in the history, at least of the U.S. Air Force, maybe ever. And when he retired, the military asked him to sit down and write out his thesis, and he came up with his framework. It's really helpful. OODA, observe, orient, decide, and act. You observe your environment, you orient yourself to what's happening, you make a decision about that, you take action on that decision, and then you observe what the result is of your action. And then you go through the loop again. And the goal is to get through the OODA loop faster than your competition. If you can get through it faster and get inside your competitor's OODA loop, then with each iteration you get further and further and further ahead, and eventually your competitors just get so bewildered they can't keep up. And he said a key step is going from observe to orient. And the problem is that your competitors are thinking about your three trends as three independent trends, and they come up with three independent strategies. They don't see the big picture. So what is helpful to do, again, we don't have time to do it here, but is to take those and then try to create one thing, one picture, one concept. I did this some years ago with Cisco, and they had certain trends which were going to be, what's it called? AI embedded into the web, distributed computing, and intelligent devices. And so they put those together and they called it the intelligent web. Now that became a strategic concept that allows them to zoom their teams out very quickly into what this future is, the intelligent web, and then make a decision. Zoom out, zoom in. Zoom out 10 years, intelligent web. Zoom in, how should we recruit? Zoom out, intelligent web. Zoom in, how should we price? Do you see what I'm doing here? We're creating an anchor, a mental anchor of what this future looks like by taking your three things and turning it into one thing. You just need to name that one thing. And again, that takes a little bit of time. You try out different things, but that's an invitation for you to do. Right now you're in that box. You've got three things written. Think about, is there an overall concept or name for that? So now we have a future that we don't want. And we know the context in which we're competing. And the last step we're going to do together here is I'd like you to now take out your magic wand and just describe your ideal long-term future, your vision, your strategic intent. It might sound something like this. This is easy. People are dying to work at our company. We have to turn people away. We have the highest NPS score. Our profit margins, we've got cash building up so fast, we don't know what to do with it. Everyone loves working here. People are dying to come to work on Monday. All of those things. And just in there, just start writing, journaling out a few things that would indicate that you have achieved your long-term ideal. This is still 10 years from now. Okay? Thank you. That's too deep. Okay. Ashish, take a break in like 10 minutes. In like 10 minutes. Like 35 minutes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So that's right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's what I'm planning on. Yeah. That's right. All right, who's willing to share? I just want to show you kind of how you facilitate this with your team if you were to do this. Who'd be willing to share what you wrote down for your long-term ideal? Okay, we could bring the microphone to the gentleman over there. Yes, please.
I'm from the manufacturing side. So my long-term vision is zero waste from plant. Second is 100% renewable energy used in the plant. And as much as automation is possible to be introduced into the plant.
Okay, great. Excellent. What advice would be to take those are all measurable, which is really good. I usually don't put measurable in until, you don't need measurable until this next step. Here it can be all qualitative and also describes kind of an emotional, the kind of emotional or social benefit. But that's great. Excellent. How about you? You have the microphone too, please. Yeah.
Hi, Khan. I'm in the jewelry industry, so
Yes.
the stuff I've written down is as follows. To be the most desire-evoking exclusive brand in luxury, to create digital and immersive experiential events for jewelry, to publicly list our company, to be completely dependent on tech and not manpower, and most importantly, to be kind to all in my company and grateful for all that I have.
I love it. Give me the first one. Read the first one again.
To be the most desire-evoking exclusive brand in luxury.
Great. All right. So this is what's good to do is practice this laddering up. So tell me, Stu, why is that important?
Because I believe jewelry is not a necessity. It is a product of luxury. And I believe people crave luxury when, to a certain extent, they don't understand it. So I think when you evoke desire, that inherently puts a demand in the head of the customer saying that I have to have this.
Right.
I want to have it because no one else has it.
Great.
So I think that's imperative in jewelry.
And so then why is that important to the customers?
Because they feel like they're a part of something larger than life.
Yes.
When they put on a piece of jewelry, they're expressing themselves. They're expressing their idea or their perception of what they want to be perceived. So
Yes.
hence, I think that's
Love it.
something that is very imperative.
Love it. And so why is that important to their family or community or other people around them?
I guess inherently human beings are social animals. So we do hold it in very high regard how people perceive us. And while some people are comfortable in their skin, some aren't, and that's understandable. Everyone has flaws. So I guess it's also, you know, I mean, I don't like speaking in a capitalist way, but I guess we live in a capitalist society, so it is what it is. And I guess perception is very important. So that is something I think.
And so
goes
when
around.
everyone feels appreciated and recognized.
Correct. If
when
you're at a
everyone
party,
is-
someone stops, he's like, oh my God, I love what you're wearing. Be like, thank you.
And what happens when all of us get that feeling?
Then we're in trouble.
So you kind of want to like ladder it up because you have an objective. Maybe as the owner, you see how that brand value is going to increase your margin and that's going to create more profit, allow you to reinvest and start growth. But maybe someone else, what they care about is that when the company is like that, then we can pay higher salaries, we can provide for our families, I have job security. Someone else, maybe the next generation is more like, when we create a society when everyone feels special, then we all love each other and we get, and there is no more hatred and fighting. We create a harmony. So you want to ladder up that long term so that everyone can see themselves in that future. And then when you've done that, you have given them this fear that they want to avoid and this future that they care about that they want to achieve. And we start winding them up to really want to think differently. Yeah? So that's what this point is here. We'll just do one more step. Then I'm going to show you the next stage, and then we're going to take a break. So, zoom out in the future, 10 years out. What's the mess? What's long-term trends? What's the long-term ideal? Now what we're going to do is we're going to work backward from there. We're going to go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. 3 years from now, my question for you is what must be true in the near term for you to know without a doubt you are on the path to achieving the long term. Note, it's not what do you want to achieve. It's not what do you think you could achieve. It is what must be true. And what will hopefully happen is you'll write something down and you and your team will go, oh my God, there's no way. We have an NPS of 30 and we're going to have the NPS of 50 in 3 years. There's no way. This is how we paint our team into a corner. And they have to come up with an impossible idea because they've said, I'm committed to this, and therefore I must achieve this. So let's just do it with you one more time. Do you still have the microphone? Who's the gentleman who's speaking? Do you still have the microphone?
I do now.
So let me see. So long term, you are the #1 aspiring brand. You're making it is what everyone wants. So as a result of which, your margins are really high, your market share is really high, and anyone, if they could afford you, they would want you first. Yeah. So what must be true in 3 years for you to know without a doubt you're on the path to achieving that? If we got back together 3 years from now, and then you reported to all of us, and you said this is true, then we would be like, oh my God, you are so on that path, it's guaranteed. In fact, you need to now increase your goal because that's a given.
In context to my business,
Yep.
I just off the top of my head, I definitely think that my grandfather used to say something. I'll say it in Hindi so everyone understands. Behti hui Ganga mein sab haath dhote hai, right? So jewelry is a business which has close to 50. It looks luxurious, but there are 50 steps before you get to that point. And there are immense loopholes in that because if someone is segregating 2,000 diamonds without supervision, inherently, there can be loopholes. So I think incorporation of technology in aspects of loops where I am dependent on my manpower, I trust them, they're all good people, but at the end of the day, it's I don't want to be dependent on someone else's mistake. So I think to have technology there is something that is very important.
Yep.
To have innovators and engineers, I think creating good jewelry is about working with an engineer. Just creatives can get you to a certain extent, but after that, someone with technological skills, ideas, so that's something
Yeah,
that's
let me
important.
pause you there. I love that you said that because what the tendency often is to put things in here that we need to do in order to achieve an outcome. And when we do that, we limit our strategy to doing those things. And sometimes you'll end up with, how do I recruit innovators and how do I implement this new IT system? That's not an exciting question to evoke a strategy. What you want to get to is what would the outcome be? When Nissan engineered its turnaround like 10 years ago, it called it the 180. 180 stood for a turnaround, but it also stood for 1 million more cars per year, 8% gross margins, 0 long-term debt. Very clear. You have a qualitative, you have a quantitative. Everyone can understand how their role feeds one of those things. So what's one metric? Could it be margin? Could it be market share? Could it be percentage of people that choose our brand over any other brand?
I think 100% marketing.
Great.
Yeah, with the right people.
Market share or marketing?
No, marketing, which I think inherently leads to a greater market share, because
Okay.
I think all the jewelers are making the same products. So
What's the outcome of marketing? How would you know that
Oh,
marketing is
you're right.
successful?
More partnerships with people, people looking to work with you, a greater market share, like you said, sir.
Okay. Oh, market share among partners.
No, just market share in
Okay,
the industry because it's so
great.
competitive. Yeah.
So in this long-term ideal, what would be the market share? 10 years from now, how would you know that you've achieved this?
By having a product that connotates just to my brand. When everyone looks at that product, they're like, okay, I know this is their brand, and I would only
Okay.
buy it from them.
So let's say not market share, but prompted brand recognition or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
100% of people within our target market, when they look at the piece,
They're like,
even
yeah.
if they don't know we made it, they immediately know it's ours.
Correct.
100%.
Correct.
What do you think it is today?
I'd say close to a good 8 or 9.
Great. So we're going to get from 8% to 100% in 10 years. You're going to have to be at 30% in 3 years.
Correct.
Right? So now your strategic question being, what do we need to do to ensure that 30% of people who see a piece of our jewelry, who are in our customer segment, who don't know that we made it, they recognize this unprompted as that being made by us?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Great. So now do you see what we've done is we've set a goal that should seem impossible, given what we know to do now, because we've been 8% and 8% and 8% and 8%. Now we're going to go 8%, 10%, 20%, 30%, right? So that's the impact that when you do this right, that's what we should get to. Something quantitative that seems impossible. So I'm going to give you a minute to write that down. What's one thing that must be true in 3 years for you to know without a doubt you're on the path to achieving that long-term ideal? Ideally, that what you write down is clear, it's measurable, and it's impossible. Meaning you don't know how to do it right now. Okay, we're going to stop there. How many people, raise your hand if you know how to achieve what you wrote down in the near term. If right now you know how to achieve it. Okay, great. We do not want to know how to achieve it. Then you should change your goal. What was that? No, you don't know how to achieve it. Okay, perfect. We want to, yeah, great. So you don't know how to achieve it. That's great. Now we're in the inquiry. You let your people, because we don't usually get this chance at work to sit with a goal and not how to go to get there, right? When we're doing R&D, we do that all the time. Right? How are we going to design an elevator that is this light and can go this fast? I don't know. Oh, great. Let's work on it for a year. How are we going to decrease our churn rate by 50%? I don't know. Oh, it's impossible. Let's try to reduce it by 5%. Right? So what we want to do is create the space to sit with that impossible idea. What we won't do now is you're going to then just turn this into a near-term strategic question. People overthink this all the time. All you're doing is taking the goal here and then writing as a question. How do I achieve 30% unprompted brand recognition when someone looks at our jewelry within 3 years? Question mark. Albert Einstein said, if I had 60 minutes to solve a problem and my life depended on the answer, I would spend 55 minutes figuring out what question to ask. Strategy begins with asking the right question. When I was at McKinsey, we would start this study and we would write on a whiteboard, this is a strategic question. Oh, you know, it shouldn't be grow, it should be expand. It shouldn't be how, it should be why. And we refine that question until you have a question that if you came up with 40 answers for it, that would lead to an exciting strategy. Does that make sense? Awesome. Any questions? That's all the steps in Imagine. How many people have a question written down or a goal written down that if you walked out of here with an answer that could work, that would change the future of your business? You should be there. If not, then you got to set a different question. Okay. So I'm just going to give you a preview of what we're going to do next. We're going to take a break for 15 minutes. When we come back, we're going to talk about dissect. And we're going to avoid the risk of you framing the problem the way you always framed it. You're a salesperson, so you always think about sales. You're an operations person, you always think about operations. You're a product person, you always think about product. Once we release that, beautiful things start happening. Apple took 30 years to figure out the trick. It was 30 years before 2002, 2003, they start scaling exponentially. Amazon figured out the trick much earlier. Take Amazon and Apple's revenue, line up year one is the year of founding. They started scaling more quickly. In this story, we would rather be Amazon than Apple, right? All right, let's, in 2 steps, we're going to get into the real action of the program. You're going to want to spend more time on this section than you need to. So I'm going to advance this a little more quickly. But we want to talk about, under Dissect, what happened around 2002, 2003. One thing, it's not coincidental, is that Apple changed their name from Apple Computer to Apple. Amazon scaled much more quickly. And a reason why is they look for fourth options across many dimensions of their business model. You can think of it is that there are 9 different places to look for fourth options. I'm just going to describe these, and I'd like you to just think as I describe each one, think about if you decided to frame your problem, your near-term goal, using this as the frame, what kind of ideas would you come up with? Let's stay with the example that we have all heard of here. Jewelry manufacturer, we want to be the recognized brand so that when people look at the jewelry, they know that it's our brand, even if we haven't told them the brand, right? We could frame it as a positioning problem. Who's our core customer? What should our brand mean? What are the brand attributes that allow us to be immediately recognizable? If you hired a branding agency to help you, this is all they would look at, right? Branding strategy. That's one way that you could film your to frame your problem. You could look at it as a product or service. What would be the unique attributes of the jewelry? Would we have something proprietary, something maybe even that is copywritten that no one else can do, a certain color or a certain type of diamond or a certain shape? A lot of high-end brands have that unique shape, right? So we could brainstorm on that. That might be useful. You could look at pricing. Who pays? On what basis they pay? What if we didn't sell the jewelry? What if we offered jewelry as a service? And you just paid a certain amount every month and you could just keep swapping out your jewelry and always have the latest jewelry. That could open up all kinds of interesting things, right? Or maybe we could look at placement and channels. Where are these people that we want to reach? What if we don't go through retail, we don't go through online, but we only go through social clubs? That's the only place you can buy our jewelry. Suddenly, we're in places other people aren't. Many, many companies, Salesforce, for example, it dominated through just a channel strategy. We could look at promotion and marketing. How do we sell? How do we get people aware? How do we get people consider? How do we get them to try? How do we get them through the funnel? How do we reduce customer acquisition costs? Maybe there's a unique sales force or a unique online marketing campaign. Probably lots and lots of things that we could do there, right? What if it's a physical experience? What if we look at the experience? And you're talking about digital experiences. This gentleman's talking about digital experience. How do we create that physical digital experience so we blend them together? There is, both in our store, there's a certain smell. The only way people interact with our brand is through what they see, smell, hear, taste, touch, right? Apple, that's one of the areas that they really won on is physical experience. You know when you open an Apple product, you open up the box, it creates a certain suction. That's not coincidental. They designed that suction to create a physical sensation, to create anticipation. Why do they open the Apple stores? So that they can control the whole environment, right? Physical experience is a grossly underappreciated driver of advantage. So what if we just thought about the physical experience around our products? Now we're going to kind of get deep into the execution. What about our processes? What if we changed the order of our process? We looked at our core process and reinvented some element of our processes. How we source our diamonds. What if we go directly to the mines? What if we design it in a unique way so it's modular, so I can now customize it and create just the jewelry that you want because I don't assemble it until the very end? Processes could be really interesting. Or what if we forget all that? What if about people? What if we just recruit people who have a certain aesthetic? People who aren't in jewelry design, but maybe they were in, I don't know, glass design. Maybe they're artists, right? And everyone has that sensibility. What if we changed our cultures? What if we changed our incentive structure so that we incentivize people just based off of repeat purchases rather than giving them just purely a salary? What about purpose? What do we say our mission or a vision is so that it distinguishes our purpose from the purpose of other companies and activates our employees and activates an ecosystem of partners that want to be part of us, because we're all about sustainability. This is the sustainable solution. Do you see how if you spent 45 minutes on any one of these, they probably would open up a whole bunch of ideas. There's like 9 doors that you can walk through, and you can open up and down that hallway. You can find all of these great things. But the thing is, we don't have time to go through all 9. We probably should. But you got other things to do, right? So rather than just go down the obvious one, we're going to peek through each one and see if this is the door that we want to explore. What you do want to do, we're going to focus on just a few of these today, but we want to always have this list, so every time you're strategizing, you go through this dissect phase, and we look through doors that we otherwise might ignore. And that results in us coming up with 4th options across our entire business model, and when these 4th options depend on each other, it is even harder for competitors to copy us. Amazon, they're the everything store. They started niche in books. They opened the marketplace. They offered Amazon Web Services. They introduced prime pricing. That was big innovation for Amazon. What they found is if they had you pay $79 for membership, and if you did that, you got free shipping. Suddenly, you went from, let me see if Amazon has this product and what the price is on Amazon relative to someone else. Suddenly you're like, oh my God, I want to get free pricing. I'm going to buy everything from Amazon. Pricing is enormously powerful and underappreciated. That doesn't cost a lot to implement, but it transformed the business. Placement, distribution, they invest heavily in distribution channels, try to get the product to you more quickly. They didn't do any advertising. They focused clearly on SEO and user experience as the differentiator. They didn't start advertising until many, many years later. Of course, they have a whole army focused on user experience. They have their voice interface with their smart speaker. They've got crazy stuff that they're doing in their distribution center, using data to make predictions. They are doing weird stuff, I think, with people, tracking people, measuring the microseconds that they take to put things on and off, and under purpose to be Earth's most customer-centric company. They made unique choices across all 9 dimensions. Tesla, same thing. I won't go through this in great detail. But every high, rapidly growing business you'll find, you could actually score them and say, where are they have a fourth option that customers prefer, that competitors won't copy, and you could score them. And that correlates with their growth rate and their profit margin. So that's what we're going to start looking for. Start looking for these fourth options. You're not going to have time to look through all of them. But what I'm going to invite you to do is to first assess. Okay, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. You're going to want to spend more time on this. You're going to turn to page 4 and 5 of your workbook. In that, you have this little description. And for right now, I want you to rate, excuse me. I want you to rate your current state, the current state of your company. Given my near-term goal, is my current positioning a disadvantage, so I'm behind the competition? Is it good as good as the competition, so I'm as good as the competition, I'm competitive? Or is it differentiated, meaning it's different in a way that customers prefer and competitors won't copy you? And so you're basically going to assess your company. Let me ask you one quick question. Let's say your company is best in class. Nobody is any better than you at promotion. Your pricing is perfect. Your processes are the best as anyone in the industry. Your people policies are best practices. What would you check off in here? No. It won't. That's the usual answer. Differentiated. No, differentiated is actually different than the competition. So if you are as good as the competition on all of these, what you get is you get a middle check on all of them. Very few companies have any that are actually differentiated. So really be honest with yourself. And it doesn't take much. Just 1 or 2 of these can result in a fairly permanent competitive advantage. Yeah? So I'm not going to give you a lot of time, maybe like 2 minutes. The goal here is not for you to accurately assess, it's just to force you to open each door, and maybe you'll say, yeah, you know, I always think about marketing and sales and promotion. Maybe I should look at pricing today. For those of you who are done, I see maybe a third of you are done. Don't worry if you're not. I want you to now pick up to 4 areas. This is on page 6 or 7 of your workbook. Here is how I would encourage you to think about what to pick. It may be that there's something really strong that you have, like your brand positioning is really strong, that you want to leverage more. It often is something that you're weak at, like your processes aren't good enough. And so you really need to improve processes. It could be that the way that you defined your near-term goal is obvious what the P is. Like if your goal is revenue growth, probably promotion would be one of the Ps. That sort of makes sense. But I want you to at least include one that is the non-obvious one. The thing that you normally don't pay attention to. I'll give you a quick example of that. You know, there are elevators to get up here. There was a manager of a building, and he was in trouble because the elevators were running too slowly. So he tried to figure out how to use process to fix it, and he looked at whether he could replace the elevators. It was too expensive. Reprogram the elevators so that they are on a mid-floor and reduce the time. But the elevators were too old, and he had no other answer. So he got his team together and he said, guys, look, we got to get these elevators fixed. I'm getting complaints. If we don't fix this, they're going to fire us. What are you going to do? Nobody had any ideas. But there's one guy, he was a doorman, and since no one was talking, he raised his hands and he goes, well, what if we put mirrors in the lobby? And they all looked at him like, what does that have to do with the elevators? But they had no other ideas. So they put these mirrors in the lobby, and what happened? That the complaints just stopped. Why did the complaints stop, anyone? Yeah, people are looking at themselves in the mirror, and so they don't feel the weight, you know? So you could say that they were focused on product and process, and they were ignoring physical experience, and that's where the breakthrough idea was. So I encourage you to include something, one of the P's is something that you don't usually think about. You don't see how it's relevant. This is irrelevant for our problem. Write one of those down, okay? Okay, while people are finishing up, I'd like to invite just one person just to share with me, what did you write down for your near-term goal and which P's did you choose? We don't need a description of the business and a lot of the background. Just what's your near-term goal and which P's did you choose? Anyone willing to share? We'll give you a microphone. Anyone? Yes, please. Let's give a microphone to this gentleman over here, please. So under Imagine, what was your near-term goal?
So this is...
Yeah, we hear you.
This is a daycare facility for senior citizens.
Mm-hmm.
The near-term goal is to ensure that every club has 300 paid memberships every year.
Great. Very clear.
So that's, and different to dissect, I guess, pricing would play a big role.
Yeah.
Promotion, physical experience, and positioning.
And positioning, great.
Yes.
So then your strategic question becomes, how do we ensure that every center has 300 paid members or more through innovations in pricing, positioning, what were the other two?
Promotion and physical experience.
Promotion and physical experience.
Right.
And that's why I said that this is a widening and narrowing conversation in the question. And now when you go with your team, you could do this with your team or do it without your team. You could just do this on your own and then go with your team and say, hey guys, here's what I do. 300 through pricing, promotion, positioning, and what was the last one? I'm missing, whatever I'm missing.
Physical experience.
Physical experience, right? Perfect. You could do 4 different brainstormings, or you could get them together and you could just do 4 different rounds of brainstorming. But you see how remember Albert Einstein, if I had 55 minutes, I would spend 55 minutes figuring out what question to ask. Now we have a very clear, specific strategic question that will unlock exciting innovations and thinking. Does that make sense? Any questions? We're about to end dissect. Great.
Sir?
Yes?
So one more indication is that we are from packaging industry.
Yep.
At least customer or they should ask for the quotation or particular our brand presence in their household or in any organization. That we are present in a market share will increase day by day accordingly. If not, we're getting the order or something like that. But yes, they should think of our brand and our product at the end of the day.
Okay, so are you asking a question or you're
I'm
sharing?
talking about the near
Yeah.
indicators, near term indicators.
Yes.
That we are going on a right path.
Okay, so
For
what do you
example,
put,
today
what's
our
your
market
difference?
share is 30 to 40%.
Yes.
Down the line, 3-4 years, we'll be reaching 50-60%.
Gotcha.
That's maybe the indication.
Great, yeah, that's good. And is that increase from 40% to 50% that very difficult?
Exactly. Our physical presence should be increased day by day.
Yeah.
Plus our networking and our sales force can diversify it accordingly or in geographically also.
So, okay, so then, I got you. So then it's like, in 3 years it's 56%, and we're going to look at placement as one of the P's, because that's your physical, is that right?
Because our need of the product is that we have to be physically present and
perfect.
move across country or globally.
So how do we solve the physical experience of the physical location problem in order to achieve 56%? Something like
By
that?
increasing our channel sales. For example, in rural areas we can't reach.
Great. Great.
So we have to do our channel sales.
I love it.
increment.
So what's a solution to be present in rural channels so we can achieve 50%, 56%?
In terms of the needs of the customer or needs of the people, we have to pitch our product accordingly.
Great.
We can't sell Mercedes or Rolls Royce in rural areas. I'm just giving an example.
Yeah,
In that way, we can promote Maruti or Hyundai sort of models and
Yep.
those places.
Yep.
So we have also different set of categories in our particular products. We have to pitch accordingly.
Great. Yeah, so you could use this maybe just for like one category of product or for one channel or something like that as well if you want.
Maybe of category, particular category. For
Yeah.
example, we have different verticals. Like for example, I'm talking about defense sector.
Yeah.
I can't go and pitch the other verticals selling directly.
Yeah.
There's a challenge I face.
I got
So
you.
we have to pitch accordingly. We have to take all the concerned people into confidence to get that particular order.
Yeah, that's great. I think you're doing it right.
Thank you.
Good. Excellent. Okay. So now we're going to generate ideas. You've narrowed down on the area and what the goal is. You have an impossible goal with certain areas, and we're going to get to expand. The goal here is now to generate lots and lots of ideas. If you need to generate at least 10 ideas, I think you're getting there if you generate 40 ideas through this exercise that we're going to do here. The question here is, how do great strategists see strategic options that others don't see? We can learn a lot about that by studying great chess players. This is Alexandra Kostanuik. When I interviewed her, she was the reigning women's world chess champion. What she would do as a marketing stunt is she'd challenge a whole town to play chess, and she'd go to one board, see the winning move, go to the next board, see the winning move, the next board, see the winning move, and then when she was done, she would repeat. And she's going to win all of these games. And this guy, with his curly hair, he could be sitting here at the board for 20 minutes while she makes her rounds asking, what is Alexandra going to do? And he won't see that. How is it that she can see the winning move? Well, it has to do with the fact that she recognizes more patterns than you do. And it's been measured that master chess players recognize twice as many patterns as experts, and grandmasters recognize 10 times as many. When we are strategizing, we tend to go back to the patterns that we know. Humans can remember 7 plus or minus 2 things at once. We have a limited short-term working memory. We naturally repeat things that we do. Like we were successful before, it worked, successful again, and then we start repeating the patterns. But there are many patterns. There are 36 at least patterns. My first 2 books are translations of this. This is what my doctorate work is in. At the back of your workbook, you don't have to go there now. You're going to see a list of all 36. There are just as if there are lots of doors to go down, there are lots of patterns. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to play with some patterns. I'm going to introduce you to some of them. I'm going to ask you to write things down as they come up for you. Okay? We're never going to go through all 36, so we just want to be strategically and choose which ones that we would go through. Some patterns are good for defending your core business, raising the walls on your fortress. Some are good for creating new territory and searching out new land. You need to do both. I do find that it's helpful to defend the core first so that your team feels confident that you're defending the core business. So I'm going to very, very briefly go through these 3. These next 3 I'm going to show you, these are the 3 most common sources of sustainable competitive advantage. It's either locking up resources, getting preferential access to resources, building economies of scale, or creating customer captivity. I'm going to go through these very quickly just to kind of orient to them. The fun stuff is the next one. So on the next page of your book, you're just going to see kind of like lines, and you can just write down ideas as they come up. So, economies of scale is basically if we produce a lot of it, then it costs us less than other people. So you're looking at what things that you do that you could produce a lot of, that your marginal cost to produce it is less. I think a better way to think about it is sorry, let me feel, yeah. I'm just gonna do it differently. A better thing to do is that you have made something and you already made it, so now you use it over and over again. So what is something that you've made, that you already have, that you could now use again? Maybe it's some IP, maybe it's a machine, maybe it's a building, and there is an opportunity to use it at no marginal cost. Just write down anything that comes to mind there. There's something that you already have that would cost someone else more to try to replicate. Yep. So there's something that you're able to do that if someone else wanted to do it, they can't do it at the low cost that you do it at because you've already built the thing. It might be IP, for example, or it might be some technology or a building. You have a question?
Can you explain it again? Sorry,
Yeah.
I missed out.
Yeah. So this is kind of a fundamental defend the core kind of strategy. So the next 5, the 5 that we do after this, is going to be kind of the ones that are really expansive. But this is just to be aware of where your competitive advantages are. When Warren Buffett invests in a company, he looks for these 3 things. And the first one is economies of scale, that you've built something, and because you've already built it, your cost to use it a little bit more is much lower than if I were to try to build it. If you've built a distribution center, for example, you have capacity in a distribution center, and if I wanted to try to compete with you, I would have to build the whole distribution center. You don't have to because you have excess capacity. Who has one of these that you know of, just so we can use this as an example? I bet you guys all have some unique scale advantages. Anyone? It's okay. Let's skip this one. This is. The reason I do it is just because it helps your team feel comfortable that your core business is sort of protected. We'll come back to this. This one might be more helpful.
Can I ask you?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Since I'm starting a new business, I don't have anything of as such at the
Right.
moment. So what do I do?
You look for something that you have in your core business that you could leverage that gives you an advantage in new business. There may not be anything.
No.
May not be anything. That's
No.
fine. Yeah, that's okay.
It's
There may not be.
It's not related at all.
Okay, yeah, then there may not be something that you can leverage. There might be management bandwidth. There might be that you have people already on team, already in place, that now they have access. they can start operating the business. And if I want to compete with you, I have to hire them. You know?
No, but it is totally new line which I'm starting
Okay.
actually. So
Okay.
there's no connection between
Okay,
the
that's
two.
fine. It's just an inquiry. It may be
Yeah.
that nothing
Yeah.
came out of it.
That's right.
The next one is to lock up resources. There's some input that you can get preferential access to, and it's not always obvious what that is. Soft soap in the United States is the most popular liquid soap brand. It's the original liquid soap brand. It was created by a company that's a pretty small consumer packaged goods company, and they knew that when they launched it, what was going to happen is that the big companies like Procter & Gamble were going to copy their product and then take them off the shelves. So what they did was they thought, what's an input that we could lock up? And they thought, could we lock up the soap? They can formulate their own soap. The bottles, they'll get another packaging company to make the bottles. The label, they can make the label. But the little pumps that you need to make a soft soap-like product, there were only a limited number of manufacturers that currently manufactured that. So they borrowed much more money than they needed, and they bought many more pumps than they needed. So they launched this on the market, and during those first critical 2 weeks, while people start getting used to it, and retailers are looking at whether this product is performing, Procter & Gamble wants to copy them. They can get the soap, they get the bottles, they can get it, but they can't get the little pumps. And that gives this small company enough of a lead time that they establish a brand. So my question is, it's a little bit like this. There's a pot boiling, and you want the pot to stop boiling. Don't look at the pot. Take the fuel and remove the fuel from the pot. What is the fuel that a competitor would need to use in order to compete with you? And just write down all of those things that they would need. Later on, we'll see if there's one that you can lock up. These things could be tangible things. They could be intangibles like IP. They could be organizational like knowledge. Are they valuable? Are they rare? Are they hard to find? Are they hard to replicate? He's reading a long list of ideas. All right, we're going to switch the inquiries. Keep writing as we go. This is, you're going to look through lots of different lenses here. Customer captivity is the third important core, which is you make it undesirable or difficult for customers to leave you. That increases customer lifetime value. Apple is brilliant at this. You buy one Apple product, and now your music is on Apple, and now your photos are on Apple, and then you've got the apps on Apple. So then when you buy something else, you want to use the same thing. They make it really easy for you to port things through. They're brilliant at creating this captive room where when you step in, it's really hard for you to leave. So thinking about when you bring customers into your brand, what can you put in place to make it difficult or undesirable for them to leave? Is there a habit that you can introduce so they keep coming back and coming back? They automatically go to your coffee shop because they just don't even think. They just walk to the same coffee shop. Switching costs. It costs money to give up my photos, to learn a new operating system, or search costs. Looking for an alternative is just too much effort. It's too confusing. And so we make it more so. How do we get a customer who comes into our door to stay in our store? All right, raise your hand if you have at least 5 ideas written down. I see you have at least 5. Awesome. So these are 3 core ones. I like to start with these. You probably want to spend about 15 or 20 minutes on each one, but given the way that we framed up the problem here, which is more growth than defense, it's okay that we go through these quickly. So we asked these 3 questions. What can we reuse to leverage? What resources can we lock up? How can we make it difficult or undesirable for customers to switch? Now let's talk about new growth. These are 5 patterns that we're finding are particularly helpful in creating new growth. If you look at how successful companies today talk about their strategy, they cite these 5 more frequently. So the first one's to move early to the next battleground. That's to say, let's play for today, tomorrow rather than today. Let's skate to where the puck is going to be rather than where the puck is. It's as simple as that. And this is important because the future is getting to us more quickly. It used to be we could introduce a strategy, we could let it run for 10 years, and then we could introduce new strategy. But now we already want to be playing for tomorrow while we are playing for today. I shared this yesterday, but so few people were here just to help illustrate it. So I went to school and I graduated with Elon Musk, and I don't know him now, but when he was earlier, when he started SpaceX, I used that to get an interview with him, and I asked him, why did you decide to take all the money that you got from selling PayPal, $150 million, you decided to invest all of that in building rocket ships? And he said, I just think a future in which anyone can shoot stuff into space is more exciting than one in which only the government can. That sounds like a risky premise, right, to bet your wealth on. So I asked him to explain this to me. He said, well, let's think about where the next battleground. In the next battleground, humans will become interplanetary species. What stops us from getting there is that it costs too much to build and launch a rocket ship. The reason it costs too much is because governments monopolize that part of their space program. They're going to privatize that, and I'm going to design the company that's perfectly tailored to take that job off of the hands of governments. So he was playing for the next battleground, right, and taking the near-term move. That same week, I gave a speech for a company that makes rocket ships and also missiles and jet planes and stuff like that. And what do? They ignored, they laughed at him. They thought he was crazy. That's what we want our competitors to do. And so that set the stage for SpaceX. It's very simple thinking. There was a guy that worked at a drugstore, second generation, working in his dad's drugstore. And he noticed that people who have multiple prescriptions have a terrible time at the drugstore. They have to leave their home multiple times. They take these bottles. They can't open them. They get confused. And he said, what should the future of drug delivery look like? You shouldn't have to leave your home. It gets shipped to you. It was already pre-sorted in little bags. 8 a.m. Monday, the 3 things I should take. Little guy partners with one guy, gets a little bit of funding, and 6 years later they build this business and they sold it to Amazon for over $1 billion US. That is the potential of this kind of thinking. It's not so much about predicting the future, it's just taking that small initial step that sets you up for the future. I think I just want to leave it here. I'll just do this. Okay, I'm just going to do this. My latest book, Proximity, what it argues is that in every industry, the future is going to look like proximity. That the value is going to get produced and delivered at the moment of demand. So this is one example. This is a soda machine, Coca-Cola soda machine. You can go up to it and you can press the buttons and you could order a diet-free, cherry, vanilla, caffeine-free Sprite, right? It can produce exactly what you want. Why? Because it doesn't mix the syrup with the soda water until you've pressed the buttons. Yeah? The value is increased when the syrup is mixed with the soda, and we wait until the place and time that people want it. The value that you create is made through the combination of some things. What would it look like to wait until the person wants it before you put it together? Going back to the jewelry, you're combining some gems with some design, with some metal. In the future, it will be P equals 0. Someone says, I want this, and it's made right there. That requires 3D printing, small stores, sensing what people want. They're on the app. They can order it quickly. You know, you have a designer right there. Maybe it's automated design. There's a whole bunch of stuff that need to be in place in order to make P equals 0 be true. Those could all be things that you start doing now. All of this is about, I'm going to stop here. All it's about is saying, where is the next battleground? And what could we do to move there early? These are just thought starters. You don't have to answer all of these. Just answer, where's the next battleground and what could we possibly do now to move there early? Write down some ideas. Don't overthink, just write down ideas. They can be partial ideas, ungrounded ideas, concepts. We're looking for quantity of ideas, not quality of ideas. Okay, before we go to the next one, I just want to show you how Dissect links with this. Is there someone that's willing to work with me? Maybe you're a little stuck right now. Maybe you haven't written any ideas down for this next one. Anyone willing to just get the microphone and talk to me for a minute? Anyone? Yes. Yeah, so it's there are 36 narratives. And in the back of the workbook, you'll see them labeled 36. So this happens to be the one that's number 22. Yeah. Yes, you're willing to work with me? Great.
So we are into commodity market, like in metals.
Yep.
How does these question answer? Because except for technology and the regulation, because we don't know the customer needs in the coming years, the customer, how will it behave for the commodity market?
Mm-hmm. Are there particular commodities or any commodity?
Copper.
Copper.
Yeah.
Great. So then, where is the next source of copper? Could be one. What are the P's that you chose under Dissect?
So
this is how I want to show you how Dissect mixed with Expand.
Process, people, promotion, and purpose.
Great. Where is the next battleground in process? What if the next battleground is process is self-organized, decentralized pieces that think on their own and bring stuff together without following a process? How might that look for you?
Good.
Does that give you an idea?
Yeah.
Great. Let's look at people. In this space, where is the next battleground in people? What are going to be the future people? What are going to be the future job, like how you pay them? What are going to be future ways of recruiting them? What are the future ways of organizing them? Does that give you an idea?
Correct. Yeah, upskill and hire.
Great, exactly. So what we do here is, by constraining it, we unlock creativity. We're not thinking outside of the box. We're giving them a different box to think in. You say, where's the next battleground in process? Where's the next battleground in people? Where's the next battleground in purpose? Where's the next battleground in, what was the other one? Whatever the other one was.
Purpose.
Purpose. No, but the one before purpose.
Promotion.
Promotion, right? Promotion. Where's the next battleground in promotion?
To be global.
Okay, great. and it's more digital. And there's like a digital interaction. Even though it's a B2B thing, you have a way to like interact with your customers more automatically and give them more information. So you're going to start building this digital interface platform for your B2B customers. And you'll start doing that now. You know? If you think about it, what we end up with, this sounds crazy, but you end up with a matrix with 9 Ps and 36 different patterns. And if you looked at each of those patterns, if you had all the time in the world, you look at each of those patterns and you come up with 1,000 ideas. What you don't have time to do all of that, so we're strategically focusing in on a few of them. Yeah? Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Next is coordinate the uncoordinated. Power comes from coordination. We're experiencing a paradigm shift that historically we've created power through control, but now we can more easily create power from coordinating. Birds fly in flocks, fish swim in schools, animals travel in herds. They create power and safety by coordinating themselves. Now, it's easier to coordinate things now because our spaces are getting smarter and the costs to organize things is coming down. Our spaces are getting smarter and the cost to coordinate things come down. This is what opens up the possibility of using platform models. Platforms are just another way of creating value by coordinating things. They don't own the cars, they coordinate the cars. Blockchain is the next iteration of this. In blockchain, we're not just coordinating the nodes, we're creating, the ledgers, we're creating the nodes that are coordinating the ledgers. All of this has to do with the fact that we can now coordinate things that we used to have to control. We have smart manufacturing, we have smart farms, we have smart construction, smart warehousing, smart hospitals, smart offices, and we can now coordinate these things because they're interconnected. We did a workshop for a publisher. They're worried about self-published authors, and one of them comes up with this idea in a workshop like this, and she said, what if we could coordinate self-published authors? Because these people should be publishing with us, and they're not publishing with us. So in a workshop like this, she comes up with this idea, and they develop it, and it becomes this platform for self-published authors. It's called Fierce Reads now, and if you're a self-published author, you would write a manuscript, and you put it on the platform. And then they coordinate readers who give you feedback on the manuscript. You know, I like this person, but his name should be a different name. I think the plot should evolve like this. And they're kind of co-creating the manuscript with their readers. And then they turn it into a competition. And the readers rate the manuscript according to heat, tears, laughs, and thrills. And that determines what the top 10 are, and the top 5, and the top 3, and then the publishing company chooses the winner. And the winner, of course, gets a publishing contract. So it seems like a fun platform, but what it's done is taken something that could have been a fatal threat to their business model, and by coordinating, they're able to find the highest potential self-published authors and turn them into clients of theirs, into their workers. All of these are examples of the fact that we can coordinate things differently. And you could even apply coordination differently internally. Companies are still centrally coordinated, like centralized economies. And as the pace of change accelerates, the coordinated hierarchical structure starts falling apart. And now there are new ways for us to coordinate. Haier is a Chinese company that I've been studying for a long time. They've grown in the last 5 years from about $5 billion in revenue to like $32 billion in revenue, all through organic growth. And the way they explain their growth is they took their hierarchy, their centralized hierarchy, and they broke it down into 4,000 micro enterprises of about 10 people. And each one has a CEO, it has its own P&L, and if the people who report to that CEO don't think they're doing a good job, they can vote them out. And then they said, what do we do with IT? And what do we do with HR? What we're going to do is we're going to break them down into micro enterprises, into small teams, and they have to sell their services in here. And if you are here and you don't like the service you're getting from this IT department, you could go to this IT department, or you could go externally. And so now all these cost centers became profit centers. Everyone becomes an entrepreneur. And we create a much more dynamic situation. All of this is the fact that coordination costs come down. There are things in your industry that you used to have to centrally control, and now you can coordinate them. So step back and look at the system in which you're competing. Look at the system in which you're competing and ask, what is uncoordinated that if we could coordinate it, we could create power? Okay, we're going to switch frames again. So you're now playing for tomorrow rather than today. You're now coordinating rather than controlling. You're starting to look at possibilities that your competitors aren't really paying attention to. Next one is to force a two-front battle, which is to say that we see successful companies today, they don't define themselves by their industry. They define themselves as something else that allows them to behave differently. How many people have heard of Peter Drucker by any chance? So Peter Drucker, a famous management thinker, he said, strategy is the answer to the question, what business are we really in? And it's never easy to come up with the right answer. This is Howard Bihar. He worked at Starbucks for a long time. He was Howard Schultz's right-hand man as Starbucks scaled. He was the head of Starbucks International. And I asked him what were his fourth options. And he said, well, there have been many fourth options, but a lot of them came out of the realization that we are not in the coffee business serving people. We are in the people business serving coffee. Our job is not to serve great coffee. It is to create great employment, fulfilling work for the people who wear the aprons and serve the coffee. As long as we make them happy, then they'll make customers happy and customers will keep coming back. So when you change what business you're in, you just naturally think differently. This is Tony Hsieh. He's the CEO of a company, was the CEO of a company called Zappos that sold shoes. It scaled hugely and sold to Amazon. He would always say, we are not in the shoe business. We are in the customer service business, and we happen to sell shoes. Does that make sense? So let's look at what business you're really in. And it's not defined by your industry. Sorry, I'm going to skip those. It's not defined by your industry. You are not a jewelry company. You are not a packaging company. You are not an education company. You're not a training company. You are in a different business, and you happen to be expressing that in your industry. Someone want to just share with me what you think that is, just so we can bring it to life for someone? One person. Yes, what business are you in? Okay.
And I'm thinking that I'm serving my customers' lifestyle, I'm improving. I'm not selling
microphone?
I'm not selling flats to them. I'm just making their lifestyle better. That is what I'm focusing on.
Great. Okay. So you are a lifestyle improvement business, and you happen to be expressing that in real estate.
Yeah.
So what is one thing that kind of company does differently?
Customers aspiring, giving them their dream home.
Great. Great. So now maybe you're giving them stories.
Yeah.
You're thinking about the branding of your brand of your apartments.
Brand will be the byproduct. Actually, what I'm focusing on that really I want to make their difference in their lives.
Great.
They should feel proud of owning a home.
Great.
In my property.
So you could do stuff with your financing so that it helps them save for the future. You could do stuff in the buildings that help them improve their health, things like that.
Yeah, I was just writing down some of the pointers, like I can have a floor plan which we can design according to their needs or something like that on those
Great.
lines.
Perfect. Great. So write down some ideas. What business are we really in? First, write down what business you're really in, not defined by your industry. Think about what that, what that might be. And then write down anything that kind of company would do differently. Okay, awesome. So you're playing for tomorrow, not today. You're coordinating, you're not controlling, you're not defining yourself by your industry. You're starting to behave very different than your competition. The next one is be good. There's an old paradigm that we've been moving away from, which was that companies exist to maximize the value for owners. But companies are waking up to the fact that if you just focus on owners and shareholder value, you create resistance to your growth. A smarter strategy is one in which your growth is good for multiple stakeholders. When your growth is good for the community, employees, the government, the country, the environment, the world, then that's the ultimate strategy because everybody wants you to win. So what I am not saying is it's nice to do good. I think it is. What I'm saying is even if all you care about is profit, the smart thing to do is to engineer a strategy that benefits everyone. You don't get to choose anymore. That's what we're talking about. My wife for a long time was the general counsel at MasterCard. She worked with Ajay Banga. He's now the head of the World Bank. He took the company from $25 a share to $350 a share during his tenure. Very few CEOs can do that, right? So I got to interview on our podcast, and I asked him to explain the strategy, and he said, well, it was when we realized that our market opportunity was also a social opportunity. That's to say that the market opportunity from MasterCard was not to steal market share away from American Express or Visa. It was to steal market share away from cash. Even in highly advanced economies like Germany, a lot of transactions, the majority of transactions were still cash. So his strategy was originally kill cash. He changed it to a world beyond cash. And he would go and talk about a world beyond cash. We are here to create a world beyond cash. In a world beyond cash, though, drug dealers don't sell drugs to your children and have that not be traceable. In a world beyond cash, when governments are giving money to their citizens, it doesn't get pilfered out by a bunch of middlemen. It goes directly to their accounts. A world beyond cash creates accountability. It creates transparency. A world beyond cash is a better world. And he's saying, we're not a social enterprise. We are after making profit, but it just so happens that a byproduct of this is also good for everyone. What does this do? All of a sudden, it activates stakeholders, ecosystem partners, NGOs, governments. Entrepreneurs want to innovate on their platform. Employees are engaged. They're excited. It creates soft power. It creates moral force. So what you're looking to do is explore that overlap where the market opportunity is also a social opportunity, and it speaks to those who are going to support your success in a way that activates them to be supportive of you. That's what we're looking for. I buy, for my children, I buy them these stockpile gift cards. These are gift cards that you can buy instead of buying someone for their birthday, instead of buying them a gift, you give them a card. I grew up without a lot of money. We had government support. When I went to school, they give me food for free because I was poor. My parents are both, I'm first generation. My wife's also first generation. We're doing more than fine financially now, but when I graduated from college, I did take out a credit card that I shouldn't have taken out. I went on a trip and I should have saved the money. I would say I lost a couple years of financial, time. And I'm committed that my kids don't lose those years. So that's why I buy these. And it's a company that's designed to teach financial literacy by helping kids pick stocks. And so I'm going to show you a short video of my daughter describing why she decided to invest her money in Amazon.
What'd you invest in?
Amazon. And the Amazon thing went up 91.67% higher.
Wow. For how long?
I don't know. And I got $9.17 more.
Nice. Yeah. You made $9.17 without doing anything.
Yeah.
Wasn't that nice to make money without doing anything?
But look at how it goes.
Wow. Why did you invest in Amazon?
Because I like Amazon. Because I get toys and movies. Amazon Prime there.
So you figure it's a good company?
Yeah. Plus they bought Whole Foods.
Oh, good.
And I had it before they bought Whole Foods, so it went like.
So here's what I love is here in this case she's a 15-year-old girl and she's relating to Amazon not just as a customer but as an owner. And I think that's going to see the kind of thinking that's going to make her successful financially, right? And so we all have this opportunity to both make money and do good, to profitably solve a problem in the world. And so that's the next invitation, to say, how can we create strategic power by doing good in the world? Just write down any ideas that brings to mind. What can you stop doing that's good, that's bad? What can you start doing that's good? But maybe just how can you more authentically and completely communicate how the growth of your business is good for the world? Okay, we're going to do the last of the 5. If you feel like you have enough ideas right now, it's very common at this state you feel sort of tired. And the reason is that there's a certain level of cognitive overload and your brain just can't handle thinking anymore. That is the same level of cognitive overload as your competition has. And the difference is that you're going to go beyond that. So let's just imagine you just got here. Forget all the ideas you wrote down. You got them written down. You got the workbook. You got it all. You just got here. And your competition has all the ideas that you've already written down. Now you're going to go one step further than them, and you're going to come up with the idea that they didn't come up with. Okay? So this last stratagem, and I'm going to do one more quick exercise to ideate a little bit more, is create something out of nothing. It plays on the fact that we tend to play the game of growing our business following a rule that doesn't exist. And the rule is you got to play with the pieces on the board. In chess, you can't take a king out of your back pocket and put it next to my queen, right? Sorry, a queen out of your back pocket and put it next to my king, right? You're not allowed to add pieces to the board. But there are other types of games. In China, for example, an analog to chess is Go, and in Go, the rules are completely different. In Go, you cannot move the pieces. You can only add pieces or remove pieces. I'm not saying one is a better way to play than the other, but they're completely different ways to play the game. Right? So what if you could play like this? What if you could only add or remove things? What would you like to add to the game? I don't know, maybe you want to add a new customer. right? Tony Fernandez did this. 2001, he quit his job. He bought an airline. It cost him 1 ringgit because it was bankrupt. And then it became the second largest discount airline in the world. And his idea was, we're not going to compete for airline customers. We're going to add non-airline customers to the game, people who are taking the train or driving or just staying at home. So what we're looking for in this permutation of add something to the game is you're looking for non-consumption. They're not buying your jewelry. They're not buying your commodities. They're not buying your real estate. They're not buying it from anyone. We're looking for non-consumption. You look for pockets of non-consumption. Ask, why aren't people in the market? It's for one of 4 reasons. One is price. They can't afford it, or they don't think they can afford it. It could be access. They don't have access to it. They don't drive past it on the way to work or the way back from work, or it's too far for them to get to. It could be the know-how. They don't know how to buy jewelry, or they don't know how to understand what the value is, or the quality. There's information they don't have that they feel intimidated by. Or they don't have the time. I've got a full-time job. I've got kids. I don't have time to even think about it. So what you look is for pockets of non-consumption. They're not buying from you, and they're not buying from anyone in your market. Which one of these are at play, and how could you remove that? This is one very powerful application of this. Another application is to create a category. I usually can't talk about much of the facilitation work I do, but this is a very old case, so I'm allowed to. I guess this must have been like 20 years ago or 15 years ago. I was working with a team at Microsoft, and we were strategizing that this new product that Apple was about to produce, we called it the Slate. What should we do? The strategic question was, how should Microsoft respond to this new tablet? And they went through this process. Their overall conclusion was, the category is very small, it's not growing, and we already have a solution in it. There's nothing to do. Our competitors think in categories, and they don't understand that categories can be created, they can be expanded. And so that is what one thing that disrupted Microsoft back then. Categories are very powerful. And in one way to create a category that we're seeing across many industries is to move to service. Salesforce created software as a service just by changing the basis of pricing. Netflix stopped renting per rental, but they rented per month. It created a new category. Entertainment as a service, Rolls-Royce, propulsion as a service, food boxes, mobility as a service. So that's another aspect, is how can you create a new category by turning your product into a service? So write that down, whatever idea comes there. Yeah, I think we'll leave it there. So you can create a new category or create a new customer. I was going to say, if you look at the history of Reliance, you could say that that's what they did. Like, that's what Ambani did. He couldn't get a good buyer for his fabric, so he created a fabric manufacturer. He couldn't get fair price for his inputs, so he created a polyester company. He couldn't get good fuel, oil, so he created an oil company. He just kept creating and creating and creating, putting queens next to their kings, and built the whole chain. Create something out of nothing. Okay, so we've gone through these 5 patterns. And we've asked these 5 questions. Where's the next battleground? What would we like to coordinate? What business are we really in? How do we create strategic power by doing good? What would we like to add to the game? Your competitors haven't done all this. You've done this 8 times. And by the way, there's still 28 more to go. We're not going to go through 28. but I just wanted to just point out that there are more places to go. So I'm going to ask one last person to work with me and share what your challenge is and what P you chose. One person to work with me. What's your near-term goal and what P's did you choose? Someone, say 2 minutes. You will. Great. Thank you. Can we have a microphone over here to this gentleman? Thank you.
So the near-term goal would be to have 3 to 4 strategic tie-up, technological as well as for marketing, exclusive tie-ups with the company. That is a short-term goal.
Okay.
Identify the industries where we can have tie-up
Okay.
for our raw materials and have that.
Great. And what industry are you in?
We are basically manufacturing of unsaturated polyester resin in chemicals, basically.
Okay, perfect. And what P's did you choose?
The piece what I chose, since you said one, a piece of something different nature, so I replaced one process, people, product, and physical experience or the promotion, maybe in that.
Okay. Which one seems the most, that you've explored the least of those P's?
Least in a sense that, sorry? Which one?
Which of the P have you spent the least amount of time thinking about?
Physical experience.
Physical experience. Okay, so here's what we do. In your book, at the back, you have this area that is stratagem by P. So let's turn to page 21. Okay? So you could do this for each of the P's that you chose.
Right.
Right? And so we're not going to do this now, but this is what you invited to do. Spend an hour doing this. The first pattern for physical experience is to catch something, first let it go. What do we want to copy about how our competitors are designing their physical experience that we could adopt? It's a copy strategy, but if competitors are doing something that works, then we should adopt that. Next one is close the exit. How can we close the door on customers so they stay longer? We've already done that one. That was the first one that we did. Appeal to a key weakness or desire. What is the most critical need that customers have, and how do we accentuate that need through physical experience? We already did the next one, the future. What is the future of physical experience? You know, there's the metaverse, there's digital experiences, that kind of thing. And we already did create something out of nothing. What brand new experience would we like to create? So this is 5 questions for you to ask, and for each of the P's, you can go through this. Ultimately, what we're looking for is at least 40 ideas. I know that we did this in compressed time period here. As I said, my record is 258 ideas. But you have, for each of these, you have additional P's that you can work through. We get this 9 by 36 matrix, and we're strategically going through the boxes. And at the end of this, you should have many more ideas than your competition. And that means there's a higher probability that you have a 4th option on your list. And so then, what do we do with that 4th option that's on your list? What's probably going to happen, what usually happens, is that you ignore and laugh at that 4th option, you throw it away. Because when we get to the analyze phase, you're going to see that it starts getting real. It's fun to imagine but about what we could do, but then when you're making decisions about what you're actually going to implement, people start getting serious. And we run into this dilemma that the 4th option almost always looks impossible. Remember, competitors are going to ignore and laugh at it. It's going to be because that it's inconsistent with what they believe. It's going to look impossible to them. It's going to look impossible to us. Impossible is a word to be found only in the Dictionary of Fools, Napoleon said. Now, what is remarkably surprising, that it is easy to overcome this by taking a tip from Albert Einstein, who said, "It's not that I'm so smart, it's that I stay with problems longer." So, on page 10 of your workbook, I'm just going to ask you to turn there. You orient yourself to it. We're not going to do this. I'm just going to show you how you do it. You're going to take each idea, put a number next to each idea. And then you're going to sort it on a 2 by 2 matrix. You're going to ask, how easy or difficult is it to execute this strategy? sir, since do you still have the microphone? Yeah. How would you define an idea as easy to execute? What would be the attributes that make it easy to execute?
Resources,
Yes.
basically.
Low resources.
Yeah.
Yep. What else?
Acceptance
Yep.
by the customer, basically.
Put that, I think acceptance is going to go here. I'll explain why. Acceptance is going to go here. This is usually low resources. It's not complex. It doesn't take a lot of time. And we have the capabilities in-house. That makes it easy. Or, if those aren't true, it makes it difficult. And then you ask, if we executed, it's important that these are two completely separate questions. If we executed it, would it be high or low impact? Yeah? How are you going to define high or low impact?
By the acceptance to the
Okay.
final customer.
Okay, great. That's fine.
Maybe a shift in the general trend or the technology, maybe, something unique solution than the current what we are having.
Great, so we have a competitive advantage. that we can- great,
Competitive
great.
advantage.
What did you write down for your near-term goal? Under Imagine.
Under Imagine.
Yeah.
Near-term goals that I said, like few tie-ups, strategic and marketing tie-ups to basically complement our expansion plans, basically.
Great. So this is an important part that, to appreciate is, I don't think this really happened here, but the way that you should measure this is by your near-term goal. This is why many strategies are not strategic. You spend all this time figuring out what your strategic priorities are, and then at the end, you prioritize your goals based off of revenue or market share or number of customers. The only way that this can be high impact is if it moves the needle on what you wrote down in your near term. Now, we're prioritizing our strategies by what we said was strategically important. Does that make sense? If you find out that there's a great idea, but it doesn't move the needle on one of those, there's one of two things you can do. One is you say, this sounds like a fun idea, but it doesn't get us more tie-ups, so it's not strategically important. Or you go back and you realize you set your goal wrong. Actually, our goal should also be not just revenue, it should be profit. Because I got this idea, and it makes me a lot of revenue, but it loses me money. I don't want to do it. It should be profit, right? You want to align those. When you do that, now you're able to accurately categorize each of these ideas. You're going to end up with difficult, low-impact ideas. We're going to call those waste of time ideas. What do we want to do with waste of time ideas?
No.
Say no.
No.
Say no. What if you included on the list something that you are currently doing and it ends up being a waste of time? Stop it. You will always find that when you put on the list things that you're currently doing, and you make those ideas compete with 50 of the best ideas you can think of, if they don't win, then you should just stop doing it. Take all that energy and invest it more strategically. Strategy is what you don't do. So we're going to be very explicit what we don't do. We're going to end up with some tactics. Easy, low impact. What I'd like to do with those is take a long list, and if you have your weekly or your monthly or your quarterly, go down the list and take some off each time and just do them, delegate them, get them done. When I first started doing this, we thought that you should focus on winning moves, easy, high-impact ideas. The issue is that the fourth option doesn't usually appear to be there. The fourth option, because it makes competitors ignore and laugh at you, and so it makes you want to ignore and laugh at it, it appears to be difficult, it appears to be crazy. The fourth option almost always appears crazy. What do most companies do with crazy ideas? Someone call it up.
They postpone, maybe. Wait for them.
Yeah, we wait, we put it on the back burner, we don't do anything with it until you find out 3 years later someone did it, and your competitor is way ahead of you and is written up as most innovative, and you're like, I came up with that idea 3 years ago. The difference is you didn't do anything with it. What did your competitor do with it? Your competitor partnered. They said, could we reduce time to market? Could we acquire the technology? Could we hire someone to build the capabilities. Can we turn a crazy idea into a winning move? And that usually becomes the fourth option. And so on the next page, 11 of your book, there is a simple form that you can use. What you will do is you'll sort all the ideas. You'll take one crazy idea, you'll write it down on the left, and then you'll say, what are the 3 barriers that make this look difficult? The technology doesn't work, customers won't accept it, it costs too much money. Then for each of those, you come up with 3 ways that you could remove that barrier. You're ideating again, but you're ideating on execution. And what you will find is that within 10 minutes, an idea that just seemed like a joke, if you sit with your team for 10 minutes and go through the sequence, it will turn into an idea. Maybe you don't solve it, but it's an idea like, you know, that was a joke before, but actually there might be something there. Maybe we should take some action. Maybe I should make a phone call and find out if it actually costs that much. Maybe I should see if the technology already exists. And that is the critical step that's missing in most strategic processes, and why most strategies end up being a repetition of what you've done before, and why we keep jumping into the river. You know? So, sell, we're not going to do here. But it basically says that because you have a great idea doesn't mean that people will automatically adopt the idea. In your workbook, there are some tools that you can use. I particularly like this one, the GAME framework, which is for each stakeholder that you need support from, you ask, what's the goal that I have with this person? What do we want this person to do or believe? What do I want employees to do or believe? What do I want investors to do or believe? What do I know about the audience? What are their concerns, objectives, interests, and triggers? What message would have that audience do or believe what I want them to do or believe? And then think creatively about how I engage with them. And don't just do the usual boring thing of writing a strategy deck, but think about how you can really envelop them in that message. Maybe I'll give you one quick story just to show you how important this is for you as an innovator. So Elon Musk, his Tesla business was in trouble. It was going to go bankrupt in two weeks, and it needed an investment. So they called Mercedes, and they called other car companies to see if they would invest. And Mercedes wasn't really interested, but they had some executives that were going through California that could stop by and see him. So they did that. They flew in. And Elon Musk, in preparation for this, he did 2 things. One, he prepared a deck that described the strategy of the company and all that stuff. But he also gave $10,000 in a bag of cash to an employee and told him to get a car. 2 weeks later, the Germans get there, and they're sitting there in the boardroom, and they're listening to Elon Musk's pitch about torque and market size and all that stuff. And you could tell they weren't believing it. How is the oldest car company in the world going to invest money in a tech startup that's about to go bankrupt? So he said, let's stop talking about this. Come with me. I want to show you something. He walks them down into the hangar that they've converted, and he shows them a smart car. You know what a smart car is? The kind of like the German Nano, right? Showed him a smart car, and the German guys are like, yeah, we've seen smart cars. We make smart cars. And he said, no, this is an electric smart car. And they said, we don't make electric smart cars. How did you do that? And he said, what I did was I gave $10,000 to one of my employees. They went down to Mexico, which was the only place that you could buy one at the time. They came back here, and my engineers have worked all night and day, sleeping on the floor, taking out all the insides of this and putting in Tesla technology. And we did it so you can't tell that it's already been altered. Now, the main German guy, I'm half German, so I'm going to generalize for all Germans here. He has not smiled at all. He's all business and no emotion. And when Elon Musk asks him to get in the car, he says, sure, I'll get in the car. And this engine is geared for a sports car, right? Not for a little tiny car. So they get in, Elon Musk is in the driving seat, he presses on the accelerator, the front wheels pop up as they screech out of this hangar, and they're driving around, And the other Germans are waiting for them to come back. They're getting a little nervous because they've been driving around for a while. They pull back in, and they open the car. And for the first time that day, that German boss, he was smiling. He's like, he felt the potential of the technology, right? So when we're sharing these strategies with our audiences, especially when our strategies are different, when they're fourth options, we want to really think creatively about how do we engage them in it so that they not only get the logical but the emotional and social payoff of the strategy. And that is how you introduce fourth options into the world. You go to Imagine. When you get to Imagine, you're going to get to meet Practical. Practical is someone who says, look, we don't have time to think about 10 years from now. We got to worry about this quarter, this year. We got issues, right? And what you can tell Practical is, yes, we are going to worry about now, but we're also going to think about the future. You know? And you, by the way, are one of these people, or maybe multiple of these people. If you get to Dissect, you're going to get to meet Obvious. Obvious says, this is obviously a marketing problem. This is obviously a pricing problem. This is obviously a people problem. You give a child a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? But now you have a tool. You have the 9 Ps. You can go through it, and you can say, yeah, it might be process, it might be people, but it might be promotion, it might be pricing, it might be placement, it might be purpose, right? You can think strategically about where to go through. When you get to Expand, you're going to get to meet Expert. And here's how you'll know Expert. Expert will say, yeah, we tried that before. Yeah, technically, that won't work. The regulations don't require. What you tell Expert's really easy. You tell Expert, thank you for your input on these ideas, but it's going to be more helpful if you contribute in the next phase when we're analyzing ideas. Right now, we're just ideating. When you get to analyze, you're going to get to meet What Works. What Works says, oh, I love this idea of going to Mars or whatever the crazy idea was, but we know what works. Let's just get a little more efficient, save some money, and invest that in marketing and sales. That's what most strategies are. A little more efficient, save some money, invest in marketing and sales. And what you can tell What Works is kind of what you tell Practical, which is we are going to do that, but we're also going to juice our strategy with a fourth option. And this may not be the case for you because you guys are leaders, but you are going to meet eventually Cog, who says, I'm just a cog in the wheel. No one is ever going to listen to me, right? But what you want to appreciate is every great thing that was created in this world was created by a small group of people who created the space to explore possibilities and pursue possibilities that were inconsistent with what's been done before. That's the only way change has ever happened. And now you have tools to overcome each of these barriers. You know? This is my info. Best way to contact me is on LinkedIn. And this is my website. And that's what I had for you guys. Any questions? I know I threw a lot at you. Usually the people are like, their heads are spinning a bit. But no, you have the workbook. You have all the tools. You're able to apply it. And again, my ambition is that 3 years from now, you're going to send me a message and say that an idea that came out of this work or you applying this work turned into something really amazing. All right, let me hear 3 takeaways from 3 people, and then I'll let you go. I just want to make sure that you... 3 takeaways. If you forgot everything that we covered today, 6 months from now, someone bumps into you and says, what was that workshop? You forgot everything, but you remembered one thing. What's that one thing? Let's put a microphone for this guy over here. Over here, sir, to your left. Thank you.
The biggest takeaway from me is crazy ideas are not that bad.
Cool. Love it. Awesome. Who else? Yes.
I think my biggest takeaway is that your awareness of where you direct your energy is very, very important. I think from what I've taken from this is that there could be 1,000 things that could work, but if you focus your awareness on something that you intuitively feel serves you, I think it can respond like leaps and bounds.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. Consciously. It's about conscious creating of strategy, right? Awesome. Yes?
So we should imagine everything before starting, and you should create value to that.
Great. Yeah, before you start, imagine. That's awesome. Great. Yes?
Be good.
Be good.
Be good, yeah.
Good. I love it. A microphone over here. This gentleman in the purple shirt, please.
Sir, in the business, the problems will keep on coming, but we should always be ready to think for the fourth option.
Love it. And yeah, and this took, yeah, and as you get better at this, you're going to be able to do it more and more quickly. So as the problems come, you're able to find the fourth options more rapidly. Awesome. Yes?
How to analyze the idea?
Okay, the 3 steps for analyzing the idea. Yeah, awesome. Great. I know that we promised that we were going to have you out at 1:30, right? Oh, we have another one? Okay, go ahead. Yes, great, awesome, please. I want to hear from you.
So there is not one thing that matters when it comes to innovation. There are several things. You've shown us the 9 elements. So those 9 elements, would be more conscious about those 9 elements.
Great.
Otherwise, people focus a lot of energy only in one and
Yeah.
forget others.
That is the key, right? The top management perspective. When you're the CEO, you got to think of all of it. You can't just specialize in some of them.
I have one question. If,
Yeah.
So, I mean, we talked about future, but what I feel, I mean, different industries have a different length for future. Like, for example, electronic industries have a very near future. I mean, they can't think 10 years or 20 years. I don't know whether they're thinking that way.
Yeah.
The other thing is future. Do you think future is always a moving point? It's not a fixed point. I mean, it changes every now and then, or every, I mean, is it
I
true?
agree. No, I agree. I think that, like, if you're making whiskey, 20 years from now, you're making a product that takes 20 years to make. Future can be very long. If you're in a very dynamic, you're making technology, 20 years from now is probably irrelevant. So I think it is relevant. And the intention here is that you're not only zooming out and zooming in once a year, you are doing that. So you do 10 years now, and the next year you do 10 years, and next year you do 10 years. But you also do it every day. Yeah, we're making a decision. Let's zoom out 10 years, and then so you're constantly adjusting for the future. Yeah, awesome. Lovely. What happens next? I think we're done, Ashish. Thank you very much. Anything I should say? Any instructions? Okay, awesome. Thank you.